Okay, and is the division administrator making a final decision there, or is it that committee?
Judge,
Um,
I'm going to object.
I
He said he
believe,
wasn't familiar with the process, so I don't think he
yes,
has the ability to testify about this.
I agree. Go ahead.
Sure, and well, because when you said you weren't familiar with the process, that I assume that to mean that you weren't ever investigated yourself, right?
I was not investigating myself, no.
Okay, but you had training in the policies and procedures regarding investigations and disciplinary actions, right?
Yes,
Okay, and you also had experience in dealing with the central administration and the way that they conducted their business, right?
yes.
Okay, so based on that knowledge and experience, do you know how the disciplines against wardens were conducted? Who was making the decision for disciplines against wardens?
I am not aware that any position was exempt from the department's disciplinary process. My knowledge is that all positions were responded to with the same disciplinary mechanism.
Okay. And while you were the warden there, was there an internal affairs division?
Uh, yes, if you could call it that, yeah. Office of, it was an office to, I don't believe it was an internal affairs division. It was office of special, I can't remember, ops or something. Also, it was called. I don't recall what the acronym stood for.
Okay, and because part of what I'm asking is if a warden is going to be investigated based again on your knowledge and experience, that investigation is not going to take place at the institutional level, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know who would be conducting that investigation?
Investigators would be appointed from the division administrator's office, and that could have been individuals from also, it could have been another warden. They just would have been people identified in charge of that investigation from the administrator's office.
Okay, so the administrator ultimately would have been the one controlling the investigation at that time?
Correct.
Okay. And how do you know that?
I have been familiar with processes where executive level people that were in executive level positions were investigated. I was heavily involved in the investigative process at certain points during my career with the Department of Corrections, and that was the process that was used. There was no specific body. There was no rule, for instance, that suggested that if this happens, if this type of alleged rule violation is committed by a person at this level, then this group of people investigate it. That isn't the way it worked. If it was internal at an institution level, the warden would at times, and I too was involved in situations where even if it was a potential rule violation from employees inside my institution that I was responsible for, there were times that I felt that based on the type of investigation or type of allegations, I would reach out to the administrator's office and have investigators from other areas of the department to come in and conduct the investigation. That was just process. If there was a potential rule violation committed by somebody in an executive level position, that is always a situation where the division administrator, most likely in conversation with the deputy secretary or the secretary, would specifically pick out who they wanted to conduct the investigation.
Okay. And that's sorry, and is the warden an executive level position?
Yes.
Okay. But then below warden is not executive level, is that right?
No, the deputy warden's position and the security director's position, many services in the health services areas were considered that role. Management services directors, there were a number of positions that were classified as pure executive level positions.
Okay, but then because maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I've been getting the impression that a warden is sort of a unique position in the institution in terms of classification. Is that true?
Well, they are. They are, for all intents and purposes, the CEO of the institution. But they're certainly not the only career executive position identified as a career executive position working at an institution.
I understand. Okay. So, well, and I guess based on your knowledge and understanding, is because I think I understood you to say that it depends on the situation, but can a warden discipline a deputy warden?
I'm gonna object to relevance.
No, no.
Okay.
A warden could conduct an investigation. A warden could initiate an investigation, but even when it comes down to line staff, the decision to discipline somebody is made at central office level, as I indicated earlier.
Okay. Now I understand. So, then let's take a step back because you said you had experience conducting investigations and investigating at the DOC employees at the executive level, right?
Yes.
Okay, can you just explain more about what that experience was? And I don't need a very long, but just generally what kind of position you were fulfilling at that time?
Well, I guess one that comes to mind the most is when I was a security director. I was appointed from central office, administrator's office, to conduct an investigation into career executive level staff at another one of our institutions. And the experience is simple, isn't it? I just conduct an investigation into the allegations. No more, no less. It really doesn't matter who committed the alleged offense, you investigate it. The difference was based on the positions that individuals were in, there was some sensitivity with who conducted the investigation, and calling people from other institutions to do that was typically the process that was applied. I would go and I would conduct an investigation, not indifferent than any other investigation I did, turn the results over to the administrator's office, and from that point it was out of my hands. Then the process was turned over to the administrator's office and the HR departments.
So as an investigator, how did you know what to investigate?
Well, you would be appraised of allegations that had came forward. You would say these allegations, there's information that suggests this may have happened and these people may be the ones involved in it. Here's the facts that support the foundation of the allegations, and then you would go forward and conduct the investigation.
Okay, and who would give you that information?
That would be the administrator's office.
Okay. So they would say that they would identify the potential work rule violations before you investigated?
No, they would not. They would just speak to the allegations. The potential work rule violations would never flesh out until the completion of the investigation to identify if there even were any.
Okay, and I guess maybe can you help us understand what allegations would mean at that point?
An alleged wrongdoing, somebody accusing somebody or somebody providing information that would suggest that somebody committed a work rule violation.
Okay, so it's an work rule violation.
Anywhere from coming to work under the intoxicated or falsification of documents, anything like that. There's an allegation and then it's investigated.
But so would they say so and so is making this allegation against, somebody else, or they say we think, or how did this information come to you?
Typically, it would come through a report process. Somebody would identify something, they would write an incident report, and that report would be processed through the area where the individual was employed. And then it would go up the chain to determine whether or not there's enough information in a particular incident report that appeared anyways that it would support that there is the potential for work rule violations that have been committed.
I got it. So ultimately, the administrator's office would approve that investigation, right?
Judge, I'm just going to object again. None of this is relevant. We haven't established that he has any knowledge of the current procedures or the procedures as they existed in April 2020. So I'm not sure how any of this is relevant.
Okay. I've allowed it pretty much, and I think you should be coming to the close of this, Mr. Cross. I
got it. Okay. I understand. So is there a term in the Department of Corrections uses the phrase resignation in lieu of?
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Can you explain what that means?
Typically, if an individual was in a position where he or she there was a decision made to terminate, an employee was given the opportunity to resign as opposed to being fired.
Why would the Department of Corrections make such an offer?
I object. Speculation lacks personal knowledge.
No, I know why they did that.
1 second, Mr. Dittman. Was there some kind of policy or that would result in this occurring?
Yes, there was.
And what was the policy?
The process was, if
No,
I
I
remember
said policy.
correctly,
I said
so
policy.
the policy. Okay, the policy was that the policy the Department of Corrections followed was that if an employee, in lieu of termination, requested to resign, we accepted that resignation.
I'll withdraw my objection, Judge.
Do you know why that policy was in place based on your knowledge and experience at the Department of Corrections?
I can only give an opinion on that. And my opinion would be to prevent that person from coming back and trying to fight the decision made by the department. But again, there's nothing written to support that.
Okay. And based on your knowledge and experience at the Department of Corrections, and I guess I can ask you directly, have you ever participated in a disciplinary action or a, let's say, near disciplinary action where an employee resigns in lieu of termination?
Yes, I've been involved in that before.
Okay. And based on that knowledge and experience, do you have any idea why an employee would find it beneficial to resign in lieu of termination?
Objection, speculation.
And I don't think we can do that because that's an individual's mindset. People may do
I can ask it a different
reasons.
way.
No.
I can ask it absolutely a different way. Do you believe that there are any benefits? I guess let's say we'll start with retirement benefits that can flow to an employee for resigning in lieu of termination.
I'm going to object based on time frame. We're dealing with 2018 and prior.
Okay. And Mr. Dittman, I want you to talk from actual knowledge of any kind of personnel rules by the state in terms of the pension benefits that you would actually know, not that you are speculating and heard from everybody else who all thinks that this is the answer. Do you actually know what the personnel or DER, Department of Employee Relations, rules would be on whether or not somebody who was terminated as opposed to resigned in lieu of termination would be able to receive retirement benefits? And that's actually know the rules that are imposed. Do you know that?
I'm going to say that I know that when people resign, their benefits are preserved, but I don't know the rules and regulations that allow for that.
And do you actually know for certain that they're taken away if they are terminated? Do you know there's rules that do that, or or there's just speculation that there's rules that happens?
I am not familiar with how those rules are written there.
Okay, so let's move on.
Sure, but and I want to clarify your answer. When you're saying you don't know, you're unable to identify the specific rules, or you're not clear on the cause and effect, or something else.
I can't identify the specific rules, but I am aware of situations where the cause and effect was that when individuals were allowed to resign, that they did maintain their benefits. I am not aware of any situations where individuals that were allowed to resign were not able to retain their benefits.
Are you aware of people being terminated and losing their benefits if they were already vested after 30 years?
I am not aware of anybody losing their benefits after resigning. No.
After being terminated?
After terminated, I'm aware that people lost their benefits.
After 30 years of being vested in their benefits?
I am not aware of people, I'm not aware of anybody that has been terminated after achieving 30 years of service.
Okay, then let's move on.
Great, thank you very much. So, also, are you aware of whether or not the Department of Corrections has any sick leave benefits?
I'm aware of the department's sick leave benefits.
Okay. And based on that knowledge and understanding, and your knowledge and understanding the disciplinary process, do you believe that persons who are terminated lose access to sick leave benefits?
I'm going to object based on relevance. That's not what's at issue in this case.
Absolutely.
Well, it is part of the retirement package, as you know, Mr. Mullenbach, unless you're not paying attention to your retirement benefits as a state employee.
I understand, but the testimony that Mr. Dittman just gave was retirement or resignation in lieu of separation occurred after the decision to terminate has already been made. That's not what happened here.